President Akufo-Addo says government suspended the power distribution services agreement in the interest of the public. According to him, the decision to make the suspension of the PDS agreement public was for the country to know exactly what is going on and therefore hold the government to account for its stewardship. The president insists that the move was to protect assets of the Electricity Company of Ghana worth over $3 billion. We'll hear from the president shortly because the Millennium Development Authority, MIDA, has mounted a strong defense of its role in supervising the deal that gave PDS control over power distribution in Ghana. MIDA was responsible for overseeing and managing the process. Civil society group Africa Center for Energy Policy had accused MIDA of doing a poor job and demanded interdiction of its managers. But in an interview with my colleague George Biafe, head of reforms at the authority, Michael Ewa, said there was no wrongdoing on his part.
The stakeholders came together and planned the project. We started with the due diligence of ECG, which is the entity that is at stake in this project. And we put a procurement process together. As part of the process, we issued a request for information, which basically was for companies out there to indicate their interest in the project. And we got responses from 83 companies. So after we got the responses, we organized a meeting in which all of them showed up, and then we told them about the project. Thereafter, we issued a request for qualifications. All right. So out of the 83 companies, we got 11 submissions. The 11 submissions did not come from 11 companies, but some of the companies came together. So we had 33 companies and entities coming together to put forward 11 submissions. Thereafter, the government, the Ministry of Finance, now formed a review panel of the 11 proposals that we got, responses to the request for qualifications. It was led by the Energy Commission. The Attorney General had 2 representatives, ECG had 2 representatives, the Energy Commission was represented and actually led it with other stakeholders. And after they reviewed the submissions on the request for qualifications, we got 6 qualified companies. Subsequently, we issued the 6 qualified companies with what we call our request for proposals. The request for proposals contained, among others, criteria that we were going to use to select, as it were, the company to partner ECG. The criteria included a company that has operated an utility equivalent to the size of ECG, and we put the number at least 1 million subscribers, or 2 utilities of not less than 500,000 users or clients each. We also required that the organization that will be seeking to partner ECG in the management of its operations should be an organization with what we call the financial wherewithal. They should have enough money, they should have deep pockets to be able to do the work. And they must also be an organization that has technically operated networks like this before. All right, so when we got the proposals, again, through the Ministry of Finance, which was acting on behalf of the government of Ghana, put a proposal evaluation panel together. And again, the panel members were drawn from the key stakeholders that I've been mentioning. In this case, the Attorney General's Office, Ministry of Finance,
We can now hear from President Akufo-Addo, who has been addressing members of the Ghanaian community in Angola on Thursday, where he has been also explaining that his government inherited an arrangement in which the United States government, through the Millennium Challenge Corporation, offered the country $500 million of money for the reform of the energy sector.
Found out that there were problems with this guarantee, and that therefore the protection that we should have in the transaction wasn't really there. So the matters came to a head. We decided the first thing to do was to protect the public assets by suspending the participation of this private sector operator. returning the assets to the control of ECG whilst a process of investigation was being carried out. Earlier, 2 days ago, I sent a delegation to Qatar, which was the origin of the guarantee, to go and to find out exactly what the situation is. They met them, and they're on their way back to Ghana. By the time I get back to Accra tomorrow, they would have brought us a report. Then we'll know exactly where we are. But it was necessary for us to act in this manner, to protect the public interest, to protect the assets. The ECG assets are in excess of 3 billion cedis. These are not assets that you can take lightly. So it's important that the country understands that these measures and initiatives were taken to protect the public interest and to make sure that potential delinquency, if that's what turns out to be, was nipped in the bud as soon as possible. It would be relatively easy sometimes in these situations to sleep to, afraid of all the public were there. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So you want to sweep it under the table, under the carpet, and let it. I don't think that's a good idea. It's better that these matters are brought into the public space for the country to know exactly what's going on, and therefore to be able to hold government to account for its stewardship. So it is on that basis that these actions were taken, and but the process of ECG taking back control of the assets is ongoing. It will not disturb the flow and the distribution of electricity in the country. Then things will continue on a stable basis.